I believe healing is an ongoing journey, like where you're an onion and you're constantly peeling back all these like layers. Just when you think like that's, you're like, I've got it all, I'm fully healed, but like something else can come up and you can go, wow, like I can reach a deeper level of expansion and consciousness by accepting this and moving through it. And that's the power of EFT, is that you accept it. You're not trying to push down those feelings of like, you know, I'm not enough, or I don't believe in myself, or whatever. You're not trying to push that down and pretend it's not there. You're actually acknowledging it, forgiving it, and allowing yourself to move through. And that's the real power, is by kind of like staring your fears down, because the more you try to resist a fear, the more you kind of feed it. And it is very much about just kind of looking it dead in the face and saying, there's no room for you in my life anymore, because life is too short and I've got shit to do.
Oh man, it's time for another episode of No Label Live, the show all about labels and how they can be your biggest adversity or your biggest advantage. The choice is yours. Each week we bring on inspiring guests to share their story about how labels have impacted their life and the work that they do. So let's strap in and join this conversation. Eradicators, this week you are learning from Esther McCann, better known as Miss Manifesther. Esther is a spiritual mentor and success coach who focuses on the law of attraction. Are you ready to put another mindfulness tool in your tool belt? During this episode, you'll find out why sometimes healing requires you to be like an ogre. Yeah, that's right, I said ogre. Esther talks about how we are all in a tug of war between who we are meant to be and our limitations or our ego. By the end of this episode, you will have a framework for the tapping process, and you can start to reclaim your power. Eradicators, what's going on, my friends? Oh my goodness. Today we are talking about a very important topic, and it is reclaiming your power. Reclaiming your power, because it's all open to you. And since that's the topic today, I brought on my new friend Esther McCann to talk about EFT, manifesting, and you guys saw me do this one time. You saw me run through a tapping exercise, so we're gonna dive into some of that, and you guys are gonna get a different perspective about that today. So Esther, how are you doing?
I am doing good, thank you. I'm really pumped up. I'm really excited to be here. We've just had a little chat and now I'm like feeling the vibe, and I'm like, yes, we're taking back our power. So I'm very, very happy to be here and to help people to guide them through this process, and hopefully to help people step into a new place today and to shift their point of attraction and how they are feeling.
Yeah, so EFT, what is it from your perspective, and how the heck did you get into it?
EFT, from my perspective, and I think most practitioners' perspective, is that it is a self-help tool. So the amazing thing is that obviously people could do this like actually working with an EFT practitioner, but the beautiful thing is that anybody can learn this and then do it themselves, and it's an intuitive process, and you taking yourself through a self-healing process, and that's, you know, the really powerful thing is that you can do this anytime. You can tap into this anytime. And for me, it's really helped me to, on a personal level, to understand where I've got resistance and limiting beliefs and things that hold us back, because we've all got that, you know, some more on one, you know, more troubled end of the spectrum, you know, for some people it's less, but we've all been like kind of programmed and told things from a very young age, and obviously we grow up to then have our belief system, and for some people it really is holding them back. But I don't believe we're ever blocked. It's just this tug of war between knowing exactly who you are and believing in yourself and accepting your power and understanding that you are here to live life to the absolute fullest, and kind of like you're pulling your power back from your ego, your limiting beliefs, the inner critic, all that imposter syndrome, all that stuff that is going, you're not good enough, you can't do this. You're taking that power back. And for me, EFT is the tool that enables you to do that, to set that intention, to reclaim that power. And for me, I heard about it a very long time ago from a psychic friend of mine, and he mentioned it. He didn't, it was over the phone, so he didn't really show me, but he just said, like, you can tap on like points, and he said about how powerful it had been in his life. And I kind of was like, yeah, okay. Like, I was in a very different place in my life at the time. And I think one of the things that can sometimes come through is the ego goes like, I don't have limiting beliefs, like I'm fine, and I don't need to do this. And then actually it kind of came back up again as part of my coaching journey. And then I had some sort of other therapy done that is kind of like an extension of EFT. And I just really understood and realized how powerful it was. And I was like, right, I need to incorporate this into my business as well as my personal life. I was like, because this is what really helps people to move through. And so it's about on. So that's my experience of it, and how I see it, and how I use it as a tool with the people I work with.
Awesome. So several things came up for me as you were talking about it. So immediately, the onion. I thought, let's all be like Shrek. I went straight to the movie, and I was like, I think every time I see an onion now, because I've seen that movie, that's what I think of. Be like an ogre. We all have layers.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to admit that we've got that, and we can strip ourselves back and keep going. But yeah, ogres are like onions. End of story.
Yeah, and then the whole imagery behind the tug of war. So that brought me to the image of being in elementary school and going to what we call field day. I don't know if you guys call it something else, but tug of war was the big thing. And from everything that you've done, all the people that you've worked with, if we are in a tug of war with the ego and our true authentic selves, how can we, through this practice, start to build the muscle so that we're stronger and we can start to gain leverage over the ego?
So when it comes to EFT, there's a bit of a sort of scientific kind of element behind it, and that is that you've got your primitive part of your brain back from caveman days, and it's your fight or flight response. And so when things like the ego come into play, it is literally like kind of just trying to hold you back, because on some level it's scared, and it's kind of like, or it doesn't want to be judged or whatever. And that's what puts you into this kind of fight or flight response, particularly if you're in a situation where, say, you need to go and like public speak on a stage, or you really want to put yourself out there, but the ego is going like, but that's scary, and what if people laugh at you, and what if you're not good enough? It's much safer, let's stay back here. And you feel that like anxiety and things build up in your body, and it's not proportionate. Like, the fight or flight response was designed for when we were going to get killed by a bear, not for like standing and speaking on stage. So for EFT, what it does is it calms down that primitive part of the brain, and that's where like these limiting beliefs are sat. They're kind of sat there, and imagine it as like there's a gate, and they're just sort of sat there, and they haven't moved. Like the memories that trigger those things, like you're not good enough. So say if you got bullied, or you felt like you failed at something, or you were embarrassed, those memories that trigger those feelings are sat at the gate. And when you do EFT, it says it's okay, like it's absolutely fine. And what you're doing is taking the emotional charge out of those memories that say trigger you. Some people don't like that word, but for me it is like, that's what it does. It triggers me or clients. And what you're doing is taking that emotional charge out, so those memories then just move on, almost like for storing or for forgetting. They don't have that power over you anymore. And I think, when you're doing EFT, it's an extremely mindful practice, because you're focusing on sort of speaking and tapping at the same time. It's like when you're doing all this stuff, it's not very easy to kind of go off into a spiral about anything else. It's almost like it is a very mindful practice in itself, because you're being fully present with it and you're being fully present with yourself. And I think with the ego is, it's just about recognizing when it is ego or inner critic or whatever, however you want to identify it. But it's about recognizing when it's that voice that's coming through, and that voice tells you lies. Like, that voice is not telling you the truth about who you really are and what you're capable of. And I think the more you do things like EFT, the more you do things like mindfulness, and choosing to be present with yourself and your feelings, and allowing them to be there, the more you understand who you are, what's setting you off, why is it setting you off, and then choosing to clear it and to move forward from there. But it does take, because obviously I coach law of attraction. That's kind of like my main thing. And law of attraction and choosing positivity does take some effort, especially in the beginning, because most people are programmed to look on the dark side of things and contingency plan for the worst possible outcome. And so it does take concentrated effort of saying, you know what, I'm going to actually reflect and set my intentions about the day, and meditate and make time for my mind. So this is part of that, is that you're making time to be mindful and to care about the way you feel, because that's what it all comes back to, is we all want to feel joy, happy, satisfaction. We all want to feel enough. And this is just part of that process, is that saying, actually, you know what, above all, that's how I want to feel, and that's how I deserve to feel.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we're going through something and trying to rediscover that, I think one of the biggest things in any of the areas of life is we never define what any of those things actually mean to us. Like, we don't sit down and say, what does happiness, like, if I'm happy, what does that actually mean to me? So we don't have something that we're measuring against, and usually we're measuring everything that we do against something that somebody else set out for us in the beginning, and we just never took the time, like you said, to reflect and to actually say, is this what I want, or is this what I've been told that I want?
And I think that's the same when you look at just like whether it's something you've been told directly by a parent, or whether it's just how society says like we should all be. Like I have been through it where I've got friends who think, I need to be married by a certain age, I need to have a house by a certain age. You have one child, and as soon as you've had one kid, someone's going, so when's the next one on the way? Like, there's a very like preconceived idea of how life is supposed to play out, and what makes, if you get to 40 and you're not married, it's like, oh well, on the shelf. And it's like, you don't have to be, like, you don't have to fit in those boxes in order to be happy. And I think it is about coming back to understanding who you are, what's important to you, because we're all different. Like, we've all got a different definition of what happiness is to us, but it is about understanding what's important to you, what do you value, and what do you want to create in this lifetime. And it doesn't matter if it's outside the box of what other people think. But again, with EFT, it's about being able to let that judgment of other people go, because that's a huge thing. It's thinking about how other people perceive us, and will people approve, and and just like getting to a place where you can just put two middle fingers up to the world and be like, you know what, I don't care, I'm just going to do my thing, and if that's what makes me happy, that's the most important thing in the world. And I think being in that place that's true empowerment, to be able to live your life the way you want to live it unashamedly.
Man, yeah, that judgment, I tell you what, that That's a big thing when you're able to drop that. I was actually talking to somebody about that earlier today, and it's funny because people are doing the best that they can with what they've got, but again, we're all judging off of some picture that we've got, and we can't see somebody else's picture because we don't have their perspective exactly
No.
how they see it. So yeah, that creates a lot of freedom when you're able to say, oh
Mhm.
yeah, this is just something that happened. It's not good, it's not bad, it's yeah. We
Yeah,
spend so much time labeling.
yeah, putting things in the box of like, this was good, this was bad, rather than just being like, it was what it was, like, and not having to put an emotional label, because it is emotional, like, on all of those things. But yeah, like, judgment is, just holds us all back, because especially it's like, if we're judging other people, that obviously comes from like an insecurity within ourselves, which we shouldn't be doing. But yeah, if we feel like we're going to be getting judged for it, we just, sometimes it means that people just never get off the starting line because they're so worried about what people are going to think. And I think you are right, when you can move past that, it just opens so many more doors up for you. But I mean, for me, I think for me that was a huge thing for me, was judgment, because I kind of grew up my whole life not being the blonde haired, blue eyed, like, girl that, there was a type that was like, in the school, that it's like, that's the cool girl. No offense, no offense to the blonde haired and blue eyed girls out there, but there was like a type, and I really didn't fit into that type. And yeah, and like, I think I've just grown up my whole life. I honestly felt like a misfit for such a long time. And so when you're in that place, it can be hard to step into your power, because you just feel a little bit like kooky, but actually that is your power, because it makes you unique, and you are different, and you're special. But that's one of the beautiful things about EFT, is that you can move through 100% all of that to a place where you don't care what people think anymore, and you actually come into a place of accepting yourself for who you are.
And that's a beautiful place to be. So let's dive in, and maybe they'll get to see me do some crazy facial expressions and all that good stuff. So if we can walk through a practice and show people what's up, let's do it.
So I'll walk you through the practice, and then if you're up for it, I've got but I might add one extra in, just because we've literally just mentioned about judgment.
Okay.
Right, hang on, I'll just write it down. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll walk you through the steps, and then I've got six. So we'll do a sequence of 6, if that's okay. And it's quite generic. Like, I've made it quite generic so that I think it would kind of fit pretty much anybody who's watching. Before you ever do EFT, kind of, especially if you're in a place where you're not feeling good, because that's generally why people sit down to do it, is rate how you're feeling on a scale of 0 to 10. So 10 is like you're feeling the pits, you're feeling the worst. This is really like flaring up for you, and you're not having a good day because of it. And a 0 is obviously like, why are you even here? So obviously just rate it on a scale of 0 to 10, because then after you've done it, you can kind of come back to it and say, I'll say to you again, how do you feel? And then if it, obviously the number's reduced, that's quite powerful, because you know that you can put a quantifiable number on how much the scale has gone down. And then when you're doing your own self-help, you can then kind of go, well, do I want to keep doing a bit more, or am I done for the day? Like, and the idea is to just keep bringing that number down to a number that kind of feels good for you. So we've got 9 points that we're going to tap through, and we use 3 fingers. This is how I do it anyway, because obviously I don't know what you were shown before, but this is how I was taught. So we use 3 fingers, but if 3 feels a bit much, like at any point, like, and you're like literally palming yourself in the face, you can just use your index and middle finger. And it's very light tapping, like you're not whacking yourself and like performing an exorcism, like get it out of there, like just, it's meant to be a very, very gentle process. So we always start on the side of the hand, so like where you were karate chopping, if you were going to karate chop something. So we just start there on the side of the hand, and it's very gentle. And then from there, and I'll walk you through, I'll tell you when we're moving. From there, we then move up to the end of the eyebrow. So just, I mean, literally as the eyebrow ends. And then we move to the temple. So when you see people like massaging their temples because they're stressed, it's because there's a meridian point there that helps them to kind of release and wind down. Then we're going to move to under the eye. So it's like where, oh, hello, it's where like the, if you imagined you've got a skull and it's like on the like just on the edge of the eye socket, on that bone there. And then from there, you're going to move to under your nose, like on your Cupid's bow. And it's roughly about 7 times for each point, but you don't need to be counting it. But it's not like boom, boom, boom. Right, just slapping yourself around the face. And then from there, you're going to go onto the chin. And then from there, you go to the end of the collarbone, which so is literally just follow it along. And then obviously where the collarbone ends and it's about to like meet into the rib cage, it's there. And then you've got under the arm. So just think like kind of straight down in line with the torso. If it's a woman, it's like where your bra strap is, but it's directly under the armpit on the side of the torso. And then the final point is just on top of the head on the crown. So that's your 9 points, but I will obviously walk you through and we'll go slow. So are you ready, Nathan?
Yeah, so as we were doing just that, I realized, man, I got a lot of stuff that's in the way here. My glasses, the headset, but hey, we'll do the best we can with what we got.
Just do what you can, but like at the end of the day, for people who are watching, they can follow along and we can all laugh at you trying to, you know, break past your many bits and pieces. Okay, so I'm literally going to start, and it is very generic, and I'll also let you know why I've chosen some of the words. So a lot of the time I'll use the positive affirmation, I am ready, or I choose, because for some people to just say, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, it's great, but sometimes it can almost feel like you're telling yourself a lie, because if you're not quite in that place yet, it can feel a little bit like, So I always like to kind of ease people in, and that's what I'm going to do with this sequence, is ease people in with like, I am ready and I choose, because they're kind of like bridge affirmations that are going to help take people to a place where they're saying, you know what, I am moving into that space and this is what I'm choosing. This is the intention that I'm setting. So guys, for when you're watching, rate how you feel on a scale of 0 to 10. And then we're going to start. So we start here. So Nathan, you can repeat after me if you want, or you could just repeat it in your head. So even though I have these feelings, I choose to love myself unconditionally. And then we repeat it again. Even though I have these feelings, I choose to love myself unconditionally. And we do it one more third time. Even though I have these feelings, I choose to love myself unconditionally. And then we move up to the end of the eyebrow, and here you just want to say these feelings, side of the eye, these feelings, under the eye, these feelings, under the nose, these feelings, on the chin, these feelings, collarbone, these feelings, under the arm, these feelings, and top of the crown, these feelings. Then we go back to the side of the hand. Even though I felt judged, I choose to let it go. Even though I felt judged, I choose to let it go. Even though I felt judged, I choose to let it go. And then come back to the end of the eye. Felt judged. 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 Even though I haven't felt enough, I am more than enough. Even though I haven't felt enough, I am more than enough. Even though I haven't felt enough, I am more than enough. And come up here. Enough. 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 Even though I have these beliefs, I'm ready to create new ones. Even though I have these beliefs, I'm ready to create new ones. Even though I have these beliefs, I'm ready to create new ones. Beliefs. 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 I am ready to accept my power. I am ready to accept my power. I am ready to accept my power. 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 And the last one, guys, this is easy. This is easy. This is easy. And looked here last time, easy, 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 easy. And then just take a nice deep breath in for yourself. A nice deep breath out. And then just ask yourself how you're feeling now on a scale of 0 to 10. And hopefully that number has come down. And Nathan, I'm going to ask you how you're feeling, mate.
Yeah, so I would say when I started, I was probably feeling like a 5, but so it's gone down to about a 2.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
good. Like 2 is obviously really low, but I mean 5 is a nice place to start from, isn't it? But it's just very, I don't know, it just brings you into, for me, it brings you into a place of stillness. I think that's kind of like afterwards, I just feel very still. But what I would say to people is, like, after you've done it, have like a big drink of water, keep hydrated, because what I sometimes find is that when you're kind of shifting these beliefs and things, it's almost like you can get a bit of a headache and things. So it's good to like make sure that you kind of keep yourself hydrated. And the great thing about this is that some people get really hung up on the words about what you're saying, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to write my own affirmations or whatever. But when you know the tapping points, you can just talk to yourself. You know, you can literally be saying, this is how I'm feeling. You know, this is the kind of day I'm having, but I want to move through this. And kind of just talking to yourself, and like talking to your inner child and saying it's okay that you feel this way or that you felt this way. It's a very intuitive process, because sometimes as you're tapping, a memory or a thought will come through and you'll be like, this is why I feel this way. Like, we've talked about it as an onion, and the other way of looking at it is that you have a forest of trees, and you have to chop back all the trees to kind of get to like the root of the problem. And so sometimes that's why it can take, you know, a few rounds of EFT as you clear memories that are connected to other memories that kind of reinforce them, until you get to the ones that are kind of like the crux of the problem. But yeah, don't be afraid of what comes up. I just want to encourage people to use this in their own way. Like, you can't do it wrong. That's why it's a self-help tool. It's just about you taking time for yourself when you feel like this to say, I want to move through this, and I want to move from A to B, and I choose to feel better. And that's what this process is all about. So yeah, I don't want people to feel too hung up about the sentences that you're saying, when you can just talk to yourself and just acknowledge how you feel, really.
Cool. Well, for anybody who's watching or listening, definitely drop where you started, and if you followed the exercise, you followed along, where did you end up, and drop something that maybe you learned for the first time during this conversation. So if people are interested in diving deeper with you, Esther, where can they connect with you?
So the best, like the top place, I feel like I'm going to go, the top places to find me are, and it's like all the places. So you can find my website, which is missmanifesther.com. That is, I mean, yeah, that's just my website. That tells you who I am, what I do, what my services are. My top platform that I love using is YouTube, because I love video, and I do have EFT sequences on there. I think the last 2 that I've done, I did one for depression, and I did one for anxiety around the coronavirus when that came out, because that was such a big thing for people. But obviously the channel is very much about law of attraction, and you know, I suppose it's like EFT is just a component when it comes to law of attraction. But this is why it's important, like, it's not affirming when you're happy to saying these statements to yourself and saying, even though I felt like this, it's not about affirming it, it's about accepting it and releasing. Because when, like I said, when you're trying to push it away, you're just resisting it. You have to like look it in the face in order to let it go. But yeah, so if you're interested in law of attraction and understanding how we create our reality through our thoughts and our feelings and so on and so forth, I hope that resonates with some of you. But that's what the channel is all about. So Miss Manifesther on YouTube. I'm on Instagram, Miss Manifesther. You can add me as a friend on Facebook, which is Manifesther McCann. That's like my main 4 places I hang out. I'm not a Twitter girl. I just never got the hang of it.
It's all good.
Don't need another platform. So that's where people can find me. But yeah, I really hope that this is something you guys can take away and actually just apply it to your own. It's self-care, you know, mental health and development, you know, is self-care. Self-care is not all about face masks and painting your toenails.
So as you were talking about the staring it in the face and releasing it, so I thought about fishing, right?
Mm.
So here, if you're somebody who relates to fishing, think about it this way: your fear, your anxiety, your depression, whatever it is that you get to stare in the face during the practice, when you're reeling it in, it probably feels a lot bigger than it actually is. But when you actually look at it, when you pull it out of the water like the fish, it's not big enough to take home, so you have to let it go.
That's always disappointing, isn't it? You're like, damn. You're like, I thought it was going to be so much better. But yeah, and it is about actually sending loving energy to those things. Like when you can embrace your fears, your anxieties, your demons, when you embrace them in love, which is what EFT is, you are giving love to yourself and to those emotions, those vibrations. That's what dissolves them, because the love dissolves that negativity. So I just encourage people to look at this as this is a very loving and gentle process that you're gifting to yourself. You're gifting yourself this time.
So I have one last question for you, and it is, what does no label defines me mean to you?
No label defines me is, in a nutshell, having the power to be whoever you want to be free of all society constructs and labels and expectations of who you should be, and just being able to flow and being able to move freely and to make choices, decisions. And it doesn't matter, like, if you change direction at any point on your path, like that is not an issue. Like for me, it means being able to do it all, and being able, like, you can have it all. Like, I don't believe that we have to choose. Like, if you're talented in music, if you're talented in art, but then you're also a fantastic bricklayer, like you can do it all. You can follow all your passions and you don't have to choose. Like, the power is that you can say, you know what, I can do what I want when I want. And I think that for me is just, it's freedom. I think that's how I would sum it up.
Beautiful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, remember that you have the power to peel away any label that doesn't serve you. And when you do, remember to lead, love, and listen. Lead yourself and lead others. Love yourself and love others. And listen to yourself and listen to others. With that, you can see us next Friday with another episode of No Label Live. I hope you enjoyed this episode of No Label Live. If you did, share it with a friend and tag me. Let me know your thoughts about the episode. Connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Loneliness Coach. You can also become a member of the No Label fam by joining our Facebook community. Let a friend know that they are more than a label. They matter, and they are one step away from their success. Remember, my friends, be patient, be diligent, and never quit.